A stone circle perfectly frames a sunrise that only occurs once a year. This is not magic, but a message from the past. Ancient civilizations around the world built monuments with impossible precision, aligning them perfectly with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. By the end of this video, you will understand the real reasons behind these celestial blueprints, from practical calendars to profound displays of power. We will uncover how a temple doorway could predict a flood, and why a shadow slithering down a pyramid cemented a ruler's authority. What does our modern world overlook about the sky that ancient cultures considered essential? That first calendar was not drawn on paper, but etched into the landscape itself. Picture a community long before written language, watching the same patch of horizon night after night. They would notice a particular bright star that vanished for a time, only to reappear just before dawn. That moment of its return, its heliacal rising, became a critical signal. For the people along the Nile River, the star Sirius performed this exact role. When it flickered back into view in the pre-dawn sky, it heralded the coming of the annual floodwaters, a life-giving event that deposited rich silt across the farmlands. Their entire agricultural cycle, their very survival, was tied to this celestial announcement. This was not abstract astronomy, it was practical, urgent knowledge. The sky spoke a language of seasons, of migration patterns for animals, of planting and harvest times. To misread it meant hardship, so observing it with precision became a communal priority. They began by using what was already there, a distant mountain peak or a distinctive tree on the skyline, as a fixed reference point to mark where the sun rose on the longest day of the year, or where the full moon reached its highest point. These natural backsites were the prototypes, the first deliberate alignments. From this deep need to predict and participate in the cycles of nature, the impulse to build something more permanent, more commanding, would naturally emerge. The seed of celestial observation, planted by necessity, was ready to grow into stone. So what transforms a simple doorway into a cosmic calendar? The key lies in a concept far more precise than general orientation. When we say an ancient structure is astronomically aligned, we are describing a deliberate and engineered correspondence. It is the difference between a window facing roughly east and a carefully framed portal that captures the first sliver of sunlight on one specific morning of the year and no other. These alignments are not accidents of placement. They are signatures of intent carved in stone. This precision could take many forms. An entire temple might be laid out on an axis that points directly toward the North Star, serving as a permanent, unchanging reference in a turning sky. A narrow shaft bored through meters of rock might be angled so that a beam of sunlight pierces the inner darkness to illuminate a sacred statue only on the day of the summer solstice. Even the interplay of shadow and light could be choreographed, with a pyramid silhouette designed to merge with a serpent-shaped sculpture at a precise solar angle. Achieving this required a deep, generational understanding. Builders needed advanced geometry to translate celestial angles into terrestrial measurements. They needed meticulous astronomy, born from decades, even centuries, of recorded observation, to predict the slow dance of the stars across lifetimes. Recognizing this level of calculation changes everything. It moves these monuments from the realm of mysterious coincidence into the domain of brilliant, purposeful design. It compels us to listen more closely. If they went to such extraordinary lengths to encode the heavens into their architecture, what vital purpose did it serve? Was it a practical tool for survival, a spiritual conduit to the divine, or perhaps something that masterfully blended both? That connection between the sky and survival found its most brilliant expression in the rhythm of the sun itself. Of all the lights above, the sun was the ultimate timekeeper, its daily arc and shifting horizon points dictating the very pulse of life on Earth. To harness this rhythm, ancient builders focused on the solar year's 4 anchor points, the 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes. These were not just dates, they were events written in light and stone, moments when the architecture itself seemed to come alive. In Ireland, the great passage tomb of Newgrange, older than the pyramids, holds a secret locked in its design for over 5,000 years. Above its entrance sits a precise opening known as a roof box. For the rest of the year, the inner chamber lies in perpetual darkness, a quiet resting place. But for a brief window around the winter solstice, at the year's darkest point, a narrow beam of the rising sun streams through that roof box. It travels down the long passageway to illuminate the central chamber for just about 17 minutes. This was no accident of construction. It was a deliberate, breathtaking feat of engineering meant to stage a cosmic drama, linking the deepest dark within the Earth to the promised return of the light, a powerful symbol of renewal. Across the Mediterranean, the same principle was executed on a monumental scale. The Temple of Karnak in Egypt, a sprawling complex of pillars and pylons, is aligned along a majestic axis. On the winter solstice, the rising sun would have shone directly down that central corridor, its rays reaching deep into the sacred precincts, perhaps to illuminate the statue of a god. Imagine the impact of that spectacle. After the Nile's floodwaters receded and the planting season began, this alignment served as a divine confirmation, a celestial stamp of approval on the agricultural calendar, and the pharaoh's role as the sun's representative on Earth. These were not merely pretty light shows, they were functional, immovable calendars of immense importance. By marking the solstices and equinoxes with such unarguable precision, a society could accurately predict the coming seasons, plan their planting and harvests, and schedule vital religious festivals that reinforced the social and cosmic order. The solar alignment was a statement of control, a demonstration that the priesthood or the ruler understood the laws of the heavens and could therefore guide the people through the cycles of the year. But if the sun provided the daily and yearly rhythm, another celestial body offered a more complex, mysterious, and deeply spiritual time signature. The moon offered a different kind of celestial challenge, its path a more intricate and inconstant dance across the heavens. Unlike the reliable annual rhythm of the sun, the moon follows a complex 18.6-year cycle, known as the lunar nodal cycle, which governs the extreme northern and southern limits of its rising and setting. To capture this long, slow rhythm in stone required a generational commitment to observation, a testament to patience that stretched beyond a single human lifetime. The great stone circles of Britain provide some of the most compelling evidence for this lunar focus. While Stonehenge is famously aligned with the summer solstice sunrise, a deeper pattern emerges when you consider its entire landscape. Certain outlying stones, known as station stones, and the monument's central axis appear to align with the northernmost setting point of the moon during its major standstill, an event that only occurs at the peak of that 18.6-year cycle. This suggests the builders were not merely marking a single day, but mapping a celestial pattern that unfolded over decades. This lunar precision appears even more deliberately in the temples of Malta. The Mnajdra temple complex, a structure of curved walls and massive stone slabs, features doorways and corridors that are precisely oriented. One aligns with the equinox sunrise, but others frame the rising points of the moon at the very extremes of its long cycle. To achieve this, the temple builders had to observe, record, and then translate a pattern that would not fully repeat within the lifetime of the original architects. Their work was a message to the future, encoded in architecture. Why was this lunar tracking so crucial? On a practical level, the moon's phases provided the most obvious unit of timekeeping for many early societies. the lunar month forming the backbone of calendars and scheduling rituals or markets. Its gravitational pull governed the tides, a vital force for coastal communities. On a spiritual level, its cyclical rebirth from dark to full made it a universal symbol of fertility, renewal, and the hidden rhythms of nature. To predict its most subtle, long-term movements was to demonstrate a profound connection to the cosmic order, a knowledge that likely conveyed immense social and religious authority. It showed a culture was not just living in the present, but was consciously weaving itself into a tapestry of time measured by the stars. And if aligning with the sun and moon represented a mastery of time, then aligning with the fixed stars was an attempt to grasp something even more permanent, a map to eternity itself. While the sun and moon marked the passage of time, the fixed stars offered a map to permanence. These distant, unchanging points of light provided a stable backdrop against which the entire cosmos turned, and ancient cultures used them as the ultimate reference for both navigation and myth. To align a monument with a star was to anchor it to eternity itself. The most famous example of this stellar precision is found in the pyramids of Giza. Their sides are aligned to the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west, with an accuracy that seems almost impossible for their time. How was this achieved? Historians suggest the builders likely used the circumpolar stars, those that never dip below the horizon, slowly circling the celestial pole. By tracking the movements of stars like Kochab and Mizar over many nights, they could bisect their arcs to find true north with astonishing precision. This was not just about perfect geometry. It was about connecting the pharaoh's final resting place to the immutable order of the heavens. This connection goes even deeper inside the Great Pyramid. A narrow shaft angling upward from the so-called King's Chamber was not for ventilation. Research indicates it was precisely aligned to point directly at the star Thuban in the constellation Draco. Around 2500 BC, Thuban was the pole star, the pivot point of the night sky. This shaft served as a direct conduit, a symbolic pathway for the ruler's spirit to ascend and join the eternal, undying stars. Across the ocean, a different civilization tracked a different celestial body with equal devotion. At Chichen Itza, the Maya built the Caracol, a round tower that functions as a sophisticated observatory. Its narrow, slit-like windows are not randomly placed. They are carefully aligned to frame the setting positions of Venus at its most extreme northern and southern points on the horizon. For the Maya, Venus was not just a bright star, it was a god associated with war and rain, its cycles meticulously recorded and believed to influence the timing of conflict and ceremony. By building these alignments, they physically embedded their understanding of divine timing into their architecture. Whether for the pharaoh's journey to the stars or for timing the rituals of a Maya king, stellar alignments served a profound dual purpose. On a practical level, they provided an unchanging compass for orienting sacred spaces and for guiding long voyages across trackless seas or deserts. On a spiritual level, they created a tangible link between the transient world of humans and the perceived eternal realm of the gods. To build in harmony with the stars was to declare that your kingdom, your temple, your very civilization was part of a grander cosmic design. Yet, for all their brilliance, these celestial blueprints were not created in a vacuum. They required a specific kind of knowledge, a priesthood or a class of sky watchers who held the keys to understanding the heavens. The very existence of these alignments points us toward the powerful individuals and institutions that commanded such profound insight. This brings us to perhaps the deepest mystery of celestial alignment, a concept so vast it challenges our understanding of ancient timekeeping. The stars are not truly fixed. Over a span of 26,000 years, Earth's axis slowly wobbles like a spinning top, tracing a grand circle in the heavens. This imperceptible drift, called precession, means the North Star changes over millennia. The star we call Polaris today was not the guide for the pyramid builders, and it will not be for future civilizations. This cycle is so incredibly slow that the stars shift by just 1 degree along the horizon roughly every 72 human lifetimes. To detect this shift at all would require meticulous records preserved across centuries, a generational project of almost unimaginable patience. Yet, there are tantalizing hints that some ancient cultures may have been aware of this grand celestial clock. Myths and legends from across the world speak of great ages, cycles of creation and destruction that last for epochs. In classical astrology, these are remembered as the ages of Taurus, Aries, and Pisces, each lasting about 2,160 years, a period that corresponds almost exactly to the time it takes for the spring equinox sunrise to drift backward through one constellation of the zodiac due to precession. Could these stories be the poetic record of observed astronomical change, passed down through generations? The most provocative hypothesis centers on the Great Sphinx of Giza. Some researchers have noted that if you stand before the Sphinx at dawn on the spring equinox around 10,500 years before the Common Era, the constellation Leo would rise directly in front of it, as if the lion-shaped monument was gazing at its own celestial counterpart. This alignment is highly controversial and not accepted by mainstream Egyptology, which dates the Sphinx to the Old Kingdom period, but the idea itself is powerful. It suggests the possibility of a far older tradition of sky watching, a legacy of knowledge so ancient it was already a memory by the time the pyramids were built. Whether or not that specific alignment was intended, the very concept of precession forces us to expand our view. If any ancient culture did grasp this 26,000-year cycle, it means they were not just building calendars for the next harvest or the next king's reign. They were constructing monuments that spoke to time itself, encoding a message meant to resonate across millennia. Their architecture becomes a bridge between ages, a stone and mortar testament to a pursuit of knowledge that looked beyond the horizon of a single civilization, seeking harmony with the slow, majestic turn of the cosmos. The most fundamental reason for looking to the sky was written in the soil. For ancient societies, the precise turning of the seasons was not a matter of academic interest. It was the difference between abundance and hardship. The grandest celestial alignments often served the most pragmatic of purposes. They were the world's first permanent calendars, etched in stone to ensure a community's survival. A mistake in timing could mean a failed harvest, so the architecture itself became a failsafe, a communal clock that no one could ignore or dispute. In the Andes, the Inca crafted the Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu, a beautifully carved granite pillar often called a hitching post for the sun. On the equinoxes, the sun would cast no shadow from the stone at noon, a perfect, dramatic symbol of balance that marked the moment to prepare the fields. This was high-altitude engineering for agriculture, a way to synchronize human activity with the solar year in a challenging environment. Far to the north, in the desert of the American Southwest, the ancestral pueblones of Chaco Canyon achieved a similar feat with light and shadow. At the Pueblo Bonito complex, a spiral petroglyph is carved high on a cliff face. For most of the year, it is just an ancient symbol, but on the summer solstice, as the sun reaches its peak, a narrow dagger of sunlight slices perfectly through the center of the spiral. This was not a secret known only to priests. It was a public spectacle, a solar event that announced to the entire community that the time for certain ceremonies, trading gatherings, or preparations for the coming growing cycle had arrived. These structures transformed abstract astronomical knowledge into a shared sensory experience. Everyone could see the shadow vanish or the light dagger strike its target. This created a common understanding, a rhythm that organized everything from when to plant seeds to when to store food for the winter. The stone calendar removed guesswork and debate, becoming an authoritative guide that regulated labor, distributed resources and reinforced social cohesion. It turned celestial mechanics into the steady, reliable heartbeat of a civilization, proving that the most profound connections to the cosmos often began with the simple, essential need to feed a people. But the stone calendars served a purpose far greater than mere survival. They were the physical anchors for an entire worldview, a belief system where the sky was not empty space, but a living, divine tapestry. For these ancient builders, aligning a temple was an act of sacred architecture, a deliberate effort to weave the fabric of the cosmos into the very stones of their most holy places. This was about manifesting cosmic order on Earth, a concept the Egyptians called Maat. Their temples were not just houses for gods, they were miniature models of the universe. The long, central axis of a temple, often aligned to a solstice sunrise or a significant star, recreated the mythical path of the sun god Ra as he traveled through the underworld each night to be reborn at dawn. Walking that corridor was a symbolic journey from chaos into order, from darkness into light. The pharaoh, as the intermediary between the people and the gods, would perform rituals along this axis. When the rising sun flooded the inner sanctuary on the appointed day, it was seen as divine confirmation, a moment where heaven and earth touched, and the king's right to rule was literally illuminated by the gods. Across the world in Cambodia, the vast temple complex of Angkor Wat presents a different but equally profound celestial vision. Unlike most temples facing east, its main entrance aligns to the west. Scholars connect this to Hindu cosmology and the god Vishnu, who is associated with the direction of the setting sun and the cosmic ocean. The temple's towering central towers represent the mythical Mount Meru, the axis of the universe, and its intricate bas-reliefs depict celestial beings and epic stories. During equinoxes, the sun rises directly over the central tower when viewed from the western entrance, a stunning alignment that seems to crown the sacred mountain with light. In these spaces, architecture became a stage and sunlight the primary actor in a divine drama. A beam of light piercing a dark chamber to strike a golden statue was not a coincidence, it was a moment of communion. The precise timing of these events, predictable only to a learned priesthood, reinforced their spiritual authority. They were the keepers of the celestial schedule, the ones who could orchestrate these meetings between the human and the divine. This transformed the temple from a static building into a living clockwork of ritual, where every solstice sunrise or equinox alignment was a reaffirmation that the community was in harmony with the fundamental order of creation. The stones were silent, but when the light hit them just right, they spoke the language of the gods. This celestial knowledge was perhaps the ultimate source of authority in the ancient world. To predict the sun's return or the moon's standstill was to demonstrate a direct line to the forces that governed life itself. This was not merely spiritual insight, it was political power, a tool of statecraft written in sunlight and shadow. A king or high priest who could orchestrate a public spectacle, who could seemingly command the heavens to align with their temple, was not just a leader, they were a living bridge between the people and the divine order. Their legitimacy was carved in stone and proven by the cosmos. Consider the breathtaking scale of Teotihuacan in central Mexico. The Pyramid of the Sun dominates the city's main avenue, the Street of the Dead. Its alignment is precise. When viewed from the temple of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity, the sun sets directly behind the massive pyramid on 2 specific days of the year, likely tied to important agricultural dates. For the gathered populace, this would have been a staggering visual event. The ruler, standing at the focal point of the temple, would be silhouetted against the setting sun as it appeared to crown his monument, a daily star literally descending into a mountain he had built. The message was undeniable. The gods themselves were endorsing his rule and the city's cosmic centrality. This control over celestial spectacles served multiple, intertwined purposes. First, it justified the immense social effort required to build these monuments. Organizing thousands of people to quarry, transport, and erect multi-ton stones over generations requires a powerful, unifying belief. The promise of participating in a divine project, of building a machine that could commune with the gods, provided that motivation. Second, by monopolizing the complex knowledge behind these alignments, the elite class created a vital dependency. Only they could read the stars, interpret the calendars, and stage the rituals that ensured the sun would rise, the rains would come, and the harvest would succeed. This made their leadership appear not just beneficial, but absolutely essential for survival. Finally, these shared celestial experiences forged a powerful collective identity. When an entire city gathered to witness a solstice alignment, they were not just watching a light show, they were participating in a reaffirmation of their shared place in the universe, a universe that their rulers had proven they understood and could influence. Astronomical observation, therefore, became the foundation of social order. It transformed abstract belief into tangible, repeatable proof, turning cosmic principles into the very pillars that held a civilization together under a singular, sky-chosen authority. The stones stand with silent perfection, but the minds behind them were anything but static. To translate the slow dance of the heavens into immovable architecture required a blend of simple tools, profound patience, and a kind of embodied science we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. Without telescopes, lasers, or even a written number system as we know it, ancient engineers devised elegantly practical methods. Their foundational tool was often nothing more than a vertical pole, a gnomon, planted firmly in the ground. By tracking the length and direction of its shadow throughout the day and across the seasons, they could map the sun's path with astonishing clarity. The shortest shadow of the day pointed true north, while the longest shadows of sunrise and sunset marked the solstices. In Egypt, this principle was refined with the merkit, a simple sighting tool made from a palm rib with a slit, used alongside a plumb line to trace straight celestial arcs against the night sky. These were not complex instruments, but in the hands of a skilled observer, they were extraordinarily precise, establishing a perfect right angle. The cornerstone of so many monumental plans was achieved with humble materials and timeless geometry. Builders likely used a long, knotted rope. By stretching it into a triangle with sides measuring 3, 4, and 5 units, they could guarantee a perfect 90-degree angle opposite the longest side. This Pythagorean principle, understood and applied millennia before the Greek philosopher gave it his name, allowed for the flawless square bases of pyramids and the precise corners of temple enclosures. Stakes driven into the ground at key points, connected by taut ropes, became the preliminary blueprint etched directly onto the earth itself. The real magic, however, lay in the translation from observed event to permanent alignment. The process was deeply iterative, spanning years or even generations. An observer would first establish a fixed viewing point, perhaps a notch in a rock or a permanent post. From that spot, they would watch year after year as a particular star rose at its extreme northern point. They would mark that spot on the distant horizon with a temporary cairn or another stake. They would then repeat the process for the star's southern extreme rising point years later. The midpoint between these two horizon markers would reveal true east. This was science built on accumulated data, a patient mapping of celestial limits across a human lifetime. This long-term, empirical approach reveals a fundamentally scientific mindset. These cultures were not working from abstract theory, but from relentless, recorded observation. They identified patterns, formed hypotheses about cyclical events, and then tested those ideas by constructing monuments that would, in essence, run the experiment again every year. When the sunbeam pierced the inner chamber on the predicted day, it validated generations of careful watching and recording. The knowledge required was communal and cumulative, passed down through apprenticeships within a priestly or artisan class. A master builder would not have lived to see the full 18.6-year lunar cycle complete, but he would have inherited the records of his predecessor and added his own meticulous notes for his successor. This chain of custody over celestial data was as vital as the quarries that provided the stone. It proves their achievements were not mystical accidents, but the logical result of a culture that valued precise observation of the natural world and possessed the social continuity to preserve that knowledge. They looked up, they measured, they recorded, and they built their understanding into the land itself. But with such profound knowledge seemingly lost to time, a compelling and controversial question arises. Could some of this celestial wisdom have traveled across oceans, shared between cultures that history says never met? The sheer precision of the Great Pyramid of Khufu still defies easy explanation. Its 4 sides are oriented to the cardinal directions with a minuscule error, a deviation so small it is less than the width of a human thumb over its entire massive base. To achieve this with the tools of 4,500 years ago seems almost supernatural, yet the method was likely elegantly simple, rooted in patient observation of the night sky. The leading theory points to the circumpolar stars, those eternal sentinels that never set. An ancient Egyptian astronomer would have marked the positions of 2 specific stars, like Kochab and Mizar, at the exact moments they crossed an imaginary north-south meridian line, one as it reached its highest point and the other at its lowest. The midpoint between these 2 transit points would reveal true north with astonishing accuracy. This was not a one-night task, but a rigorous, repeated practice, translating the perfect circular motion of the heavens into a single, immutable line on the desert floor. That line became the sacred foundation for a structure meant to last for eternity. But the astronomical ambition of Giza extends far beyond mere orientation. The pyramid's very arrangement on the ground appears to be a deliberate echo of the sky. The 3 main pyramids of Giza are laid out in a pattern that closely mirrors the 3 stars of Orion's belt, with the Nile River symbolically representing the Milky Way. This was not a random artistic choice. In Egyptian mythology, Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife and rebirth. By recreating this constellation in stone on the west bank of the Nile, the realm of the setting sun and the dead, the builders were constructing a permanent gateway, ensuring the pharaoh's spirit could ascend directly to join the eternal gods. This celestial connection was made even more explicit within the pyramid itself. From the so-called king's chamber, narrow shafts angle upward toward the sky. Research indicates that around the time of its construction, these southern shafts were precisely aligned to frame the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, and linked to the goddess Isis, and Al-Nitak, the central star of Orion's belt. At their zenith, these stars would have shone directly down these stone tunnels, bathing the inner chamber in starlight. Imagine the profound symbolism for the ancient Egyptians. The pyramid was not just a tomb, it was a sophisticated machine for resurrection. Its perfect north-south alignment anchored it to the cosmic order. Its earthly layout mirrored a divine constellation, and its internal shafts provided a direct conduit for the king's soul to travel to the stellar realm. This case is a masterclass in layered meaning, where practical engineering, profound mythology, and celestial precision were fused into a single, monumental statement of power and belief. It shows a civilization that did not simply observe the stars, but sought to replicate their eternal order on Earth, creating a bridge between the mortal and the immortal that was built to last for ages. Stonehenge stands as a testament to evolving genius, its stones arranged not in a single moment but across generations. This was not a static monument, but a project that grew in complexity over centuries, each new ring of earth or circle of stone reflecting a deeper grasp of celestial mechanics. While the iconic alignment of the heel stone with the summer solstice sunrise captures our modern imagination, It is merely the most obvious feature of a far more intricate design. The true sophistication of Stonehenge lies in its subtle geometry, a geometry that seems to have been built to track not just the sun, but the more elusive moon. Scattered around the main circle are 4 so-called station stones. If you were to draw lines connecting them, they form a near-perfect rectangle. The long sides of this rectangle align with the most extreme rising and setting points of the summer and winter sun. But the short sides point toward the northernmost and southernmost rising points of the moon, markers in its slow 18.6-year cycle. This suggests the builders were mapping a grand celestial clock, with the sun keeping the hours and the moon marking the years. Even more intriguing are the 56 Aubrey holes, a ring of pits just inside the earthwork bank. While their exact purpose is debated, one compelling theory posits they served as a primitive counting system. By moving markers from hole to hole in a set pattern, perhaps tracking the years, a knowledgeable observer could have predicted the dangerous and awe-inspiring events that occurred when the sun and moon cycles intersected, eclipses. This transforms our understanding of the site. Stonehenge was likely far more than a temple for solstice ceremonies. It may have functioned as a sophisticated Neolithic observatory and computer, a place where a learned class could calculate, predict, and ultimately demonstrate control over the most dramatic events in the sky. For the community gathered on the open plain, witnessing the sun rise perfectly between the stones on the longest day, or being warned of an impending lunar eclipse, was a profound experience. It confirmed that their world was orderly and predictable, that their rituals were in harmony with the cosmos, and that their leaders possessed sacred knowledge. This shared celestial witness forged an unbreakable social bond, turning a collection of massive stones into the beating heart of a civilization's identity, a calendar, a church, and a cosmic compass all in one. The Pyramid of Kukulcan at Chichen Itza is a monument that performs. It is not a silent, static structure, but a stage engineered for one of the most breathtaking celestial spectacles in the ancient world. Twice each year, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the late afternoon sun casts a series of triangular shadows along the stepped northern staircase. These shadows align perfectly with the carved stone serpent heads at the base, creating the undulating illusion of a massive feathered serpent slithering down from the heavens to the earth. This is not a happy accident of architecture, it is a choreographed descent, a moment where the god Kukulcan was believed to physically visit his people. The entire pyramid is a solar calendar made tangible. Each of its 4 sides has 91 steps, which together total 364. The final step, the platform at the summit, brings the count to 365, a complete solar year etched directly into the climb to the sacred temple above. This mathematical precision extends to the pyramid's orientation, its corners aligned with such accuracy that it functions as a giant gnomon, marking the equinoxes and solstices with shadows that bisect its faces. But the builder's genius did not stop with light. They also mastered sound. A clap at the base of the staircase produces an echo that eerily resembles the chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, an animal closely associated with the feathered serpent deity. This acoustic phenomenon transforms a simple human action into a divine response, further blurring the line between the mortal realm and the world of the gods. Every element of El Castillo, from its step count to its shadows to its echoes, was a deliberate integration of astronomy, mathematics, art, and faith. It was designed not just to be seen, but to be experienced, a full sensory immersion that demonstrated the ruler's ability to summon the god's presence through an understanding of cosmic mechanics. For the gathered crowd, witnessing the serpent of light descend the pyramid was definitive proof. It showed that their leaders held the keys to the cosmos, that their rituals were timed to a celestial schedule, and that their world was in perfect, predictable harmony. This was the ultimate display of power, where knowledge of the stars became a tool to manifest the divine. making faith visible and authority unquestionable. High on a sandstone butte in the arid American Southwest, a different kind of celestial machine was engineered entirely by nature's hand. The ancestral pueblones of Chaco Canyon did not need to quarry and haul multi-ton stones to build their observatory. Instead, they found one already sculpted by time, Fajada Butte, and with a few deliberate modifications, they transformed it into a solar calendar of breathtaking subtlety and precision. At the butte's summit, 3 massive stone slabs, having fallen from the cliff face eons earlier, lean against a shaded rock wall. On that wall, the pueblones carved 2 spirals, a large one and a smaller one. For most of the year, these petroglyphs are simply ancient art in the dim light. But on specific, critical days, the architecture of light and shadow performs a silent, predictable dance. As the sun climbs to its highest point at noon on the summer solstice, a slender dagger of sunlight, channeled through a narrow gap between 2 of the slabs, slices perfectly down through the center of the larger spiral. On the winter solstice, a different configuration creates 2 daggers of light that bracket the same spiral, and on the spring and fall equinoxes, a single dagger of light bisects the smaller spiral. This was not a monument built to dominate the landscape, but a sacred instrument integrated into it. It required no written language to interpret, only the knowledge of when and where to look. The Sun Dagger site demonstrates that profound astronomical understanding could be achieved through an intimate partnership with the environment. The builders were masterful observers, reading the play of light across the rock face across generations, then making small, crucial adjustments, perhaps by shifting a stone or choosing the exact spot for the carving, to refine the alignment to calendar-perfect accuracy. This site served as a communal timekeeper for a vast cultural network, signaling the times for planting, harvest, and the ceremonies that honored the sun's pivotal journey. It reminds us that celestial wisdom is not measured by the mass of the stones, but by the clarity of the observation and the intention behind it. A single beam of light, focused by a crack in a rock, could mark the turning of the year with the same authority as any towering pyramid. This elegant solution prompts a question that echoes across continents and cultures. If so many different societies, from the deserts of North America to the jungles of Cambodia, all looked to the same sky and built alignments into their sacred spaces, what does this tell us about humanity itself? Were these ideas born independently in isolated minds, or could there have been a thread of shared knowledge, a connection lost to time? A single question haunts these scattered stones across the globe. When we see the same principles of celestial alignment in the jungles of Cambodia, the deserts of Egypt, and the plains of Britain, are we looking at a shared heritage or a shared human instinct? This is the great debate between diffusion and independent invention. On one side lies a romantic and persistent idea that a single, lost advanced civilization sailed the ancient world, ceding this sophisticated knowledge to primitive cultures. Perhaps it was Atlantis or a forgotten seafaring people whose legacy is written in these solar and stellar alignments. This theory suggests a common teacher, a single source of wisdom now vanished beneath the waves or the sands. The alternative explanation is less mystical but arguably more profound. It argues that these cultures, separated by vast oceans and millennia, all looked up at the same sun, moon, and stars. Faced with the same pressing needs to track time, predict seasons, and seek meaning, they independently arrived at similar solutions. This view of independent invention is supported by a simple truth. Basic solar and lunar observation is not advanced physics. It is a fundamental survival skill. Any community that depends on agriculture will, over generations, notice the sun's shifting horizon points. They will see the connection between the Pleiades rising and the first frost, or between Sirius and the floodwaters. The drive to mark these events permanently, to build a calendar that outlasts any individual is a logical next step. The human mind, confronted with the same patterns in the sky and the same needs on the ground, is brilliantly capable of converging on similar architectural answers. Yet, the debate is fueled by those extraordinary cases that seem to leap beyond simple survival. The potential awareness of the 26,000-year precessional cycle, or the precise encoding of the complex lunar nodal cycle, feels different. This knowledge requires observations sustained across dozens of generations, a long-term project that seems to hint at a dedicated, almost scientific tradition that could, theoretically, have been preserved and transferred. Could there have been pockets of contact, a slow trickle of ideas along trade routes that carried not just goods but celestial concepts? It is possible but unproven. What this debate ultimately reveals is not about proving a single historical truth, but about understanding the depths of human ingenuity. Whether the knowledge was homegrown or borrowed, each culture that employed it did so for its own unique purposes, weaving it into the fabric of their own myths, power structures, and identity. The repeated emergence of these alignments speaks to something universal, a deep-seated human desire to find order in the cosmos and to anchor our fleeting lives to something eternal. We built these monuments not because we were taught to, but because we are wired to look for patterns, to seek meaning, and to leave a mark that says we understood, in some small way, the grand clockwork of the heavens. The debate between shared origins and independent genius is fascinating, but it is not settled by stories alone. It requires evidence, a methodical sifting of fact from folklore. This is the domain of archaeoastronomy, a rigorous science dedicated to decoding the past. This field does not rely on speculation. Instead, it weaves together several distinct threads of knowledge. Archaeologists provide the physical context, the precise dating of a site, and the understanding of its construction. Astronomers bring the mathematical models to recreate the ancient sky at any point in history. Ethnographers and historians contribute the cultural records, the myths, oral traditions, and written accounts that hint at what the stars meant to the people who built there. Only by combining these perspectives can a true picture emerge. To test an alignment hypothesis, researchers first establish the exact date when a monument was built. They then use sophisticated software like the program Stellarium to roll back the celestial clock. This simulation shows precisely where the sun, moon, or a specific star would have risen or set on the horizon from that very spot thousands of years ago. Next, they conduct a precise survey of the site with tools like a theodolite, measuring the exact angles of doorways, corridors, and sightlines. The final step is a statistical analysis. Does the architectural alignment match the celestial event within a reasonable margin of error for the builder's technology? And is that match unlikely to be random? This process helps separate the genuinely intentional alignments, the cosmic blueprints, from intriguing but ultimately coincidental arrangements of stone. Perhaps the most vital layer comes from living traditions. By studying the ethnographic records and contemporary practices of descendant communities, like the Hopi people in the American Southwest or the Maya in Central America, archaeoastronomers can often find cultural continuity. A solstice alignment that modern science sees as a calendar might be explained through persistent oral history as the pathway for ancestral spirits, or the moment a deity is reborn. This cultural context transforms a cold geometric calculation into a warm human story. It provides the why behind the precise angle. This interdisciplinary approach gives us a far more nuanced and evidence-based understanding. It allows the stones to speak not just of celestial mechanics, but of the worldview, the fears, and the aspirations of the people who placed them. It turns speculation into a disciplined conversation with the past, where every alignment must earn its significance through a convergence of hard data and human meaning. The shadow of a mystery can sometimes be longer than the stone that casts it. In exploring these celestial alignments, we inevitably encounter a realm of speculation that stretches far beyond the evidence, into tales of visiting star gods, lost continents, and technologies that defy our understanding of history. These narratives are undeniably captivating, offering a thrilling shortcut to wonder. Yet, to accept them uncritically is to do a profound disservice to the very cultures we seek to admire. The truth is, the real story of human achievement is often more complex, more patient, and ultimately more inspiring than any fiction about ancient astronauts. Take the popular idea that the pyramids of Giza are a perfect map of Orion's belt. While the visual similarity is striking, a rigorous astronomical check reveals a problem. When we account for precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, and plot the stars as they actually were over 4,000 years ago, the match is not precise. The relative sizes and spacing of the pyramids do not align perfectly with the stars' brightness and positions. This doesn't nullify a possible symbolic connection, which Egyptologists acknowledge could exist within their mythology, but it challenges the idea of a one-to-one terrestrial map. Similarly, grand theories about a global network of power points or energy lines connecting sacred sites across continents often rely on selective data. They might connect points on a map that seem to form geometric patterns, but these patterns frequently emerge by chance when you have thousands of sites to choose from across the globe. The lines drawn are interpretations, not foundations discovered by builders. Why does this distinction matter so much? Because leaping to supernatural explanations implicitly suggests that our ancestors were incapable of such feats on their own. It strips them of their intellect, their perseverance, and their genius. The patient, generational work of tracking a star's path for decades, the brilliant simplicity of using a knotted rope to create a perfect right angle, the communal effort of moving a megalith with levers and sledges, these are the true marvels. They represent a different kind of magic, the magic of cumulative human cooperation, curiosity, and problem-solving. This grounded perspective doesn't shrink the mystery, it deepens it. It asks us to truly sit with the scale of their undertaking, to consider a project so important that a society would dedicate centuries to its completion, passing down precise knowledge from master to apprentice through countless lifetimes. That level of cultural continuity and shared purpose is, in many ways, more alien to our fast-paced modern world than any tale from beyond the stars. By focusing on the demonstrable, we honor the builders not as passive recipients of outside help, but as active, brilliant architects of their own destiny. Their legacy is not a puzzle to be solved by invoking the impossible, but a testament to what is possible when human eyes look up, human hands work together, and a human spirit decides to build a dialogue with the cosmos that would echo for millennia. These stories were the original textbooks, written not on papyrus but in the collective memory of a people. In a world without written records, the survival of complex knowledge depended on its transformation into something unforgettable, a narrative woven with heroes, gods, and cosmic drama. Mythology was far more than entertainment. It was a sophisticated data storage system. The rhythm of a chant, the vivid imagery of a struggle between light and dark, the journey of a deity across the sky. These elements made abstract celestial mechanics memorable and transmissible across countless generations. Take the enduring Egyptian myth of Osiris. Murdered and dismembered by his brother Set, he was reassembled and revived by his devoted wife Isis, becoming the lord of the afterlife. This story of death and rebirth was permanently etched into the night sky. Osiris was identified with the constellation Orion, the great hunter. Isis was linked to Sirius, the brightest star, whose heliacal rising just before dawn signaled the Nile's life-giving flood, and symbolically, Osiris's annual return. The myth gave profound meaning to an observable astronomical event. It explained why those specific stars were important, turning an agricultural signal into a divine love story that reaffirmed the cycles of life, death, and renewal central to Egyptian belief. The alignment of pyramid shafts toward these stars was not just an engineering feat, it was a ritual in stone, physically recreating the path of the pharaoh's soul to join this eternal, mythic narrative. Across the Mediterranean, the Greek legend of Theseus and the Minotaur may hold a similar key. To reach the labyrinth on Crete and later to escape it, Theseus relied on a ball of thread given by Ariadne. Some scholars see in this a potent metaphor for celestial navigation. In the ancient world, sailors traversing the featureless sea relied on the stars. The constellation we call Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, contains Polaris, the North Star, but a more prominent guide was Ursa Major, the Great Bear, whose stars could be used to find true north. The Greek word for this constellation is Arctos, meaning bear. The name Ariadne is strikingly close to Ariadne's thread, which some linguists and mythologists suggest could be a folk memory of Arctu, or of the bear, a celestial thread in the sky guiding the hero home. Whether the myth originated as a sailing manual encoded in story is debated, but the principle is clear. Wrapping vital knowledge in an epic tale ensured it would be told and retold, sung and remembered, long after the original practical context might have faded. A temple doorway aligned to the rising sun on the equinox did not just mark a date. For the community gathered there, it staged the moment when the sun god triumphed over darkness, or when the world was brought back into balance. The architecture made the myth manifest, allowing people to witness and participate in the cosmic story every year. This seamless fusion reveals a worldview where what we now separate as astronomy, religion, and storytelling existed as a single, coherent whole. Observing the stars was a spiritual act, and telling their stories was a scientific one, all part of a continuous quest to understand humanity's role within a living, storied cosmos. The stones did not choose their place alone. The land itself whispered the first instructions. Before a single megalith was raised or a foundation stone laid, the builders were already reading a sacred map written in the contours of the earth. A distant, solitary peak, a dramatic bend in a life-giving river, or even a unique notch in the skyline could serve as the original, immutable reference point. This was not just convenient surveying, it was a profound recognition that the earth and sky were two halves of a single divine system. The natural world provided the first and most powerful alignments, and human ingenuity worked with them, not against them. At Machu Picchu, the entire city is a masterpiece of this philosophy. The sacred mountain of Huayna Picchu is not just a dramatic backdrop, it is an integral part of the site's celestial orientation. Key structures align with its summit, and sightlines from certain temples frame its peak against specific risings of the sun or stars. The builders did not flatten the mountain to impose their will. They incorporated its majestic form into their cosmic blueprint, making the mountain itself a permanent altar in their open-air temple. This principle of enhancement is seen everywhere. A naturally occurring crack in a cave ceiling might be carefully widened to allow a beam of the winter solstice sun to penetrate the deepest darkness. A prominent, oddly shaped boulder on a ridge could be subtly carved and notched, transforming it from a random geological feature into a precise foresight for observing the lunar standstill. The famous heel stone at Stonehenge, standing solitary outside the main circle, is a prime example. It is a natural sarsen stone, not shaped like the others. Its power and purpose come from where it was placed, carefully positioned so that on the summer solstice, the rising sun appears to crown its tip from the center of the circle. The stone was likely chosen precisely because its unusual shape created that perfect silhouette against the dawn. This deep synergy created what scholars call a sacred geography. A temple was not an isolated building, but a node in a vast, living network that included mountains, springs, rivers, and stones. The celestial order was mirrored in the earthly landscape, and by building at these potent intersections, the people believed they could tap into the energy of both realms. They were not conquering nature with their architecture, they were conducting a conversation with it, using stone and shadow to amplify a connection that they felt was already there, waiting to be seen and celebrated. This celestial conversation was never meant to end with the last stone placed. The profound knowledge of aligning architecture with the heavens did not disappear into the sands of time. It was simply translated, passed down like a sacred heirloom from one civilization to the next, each adding its own chapter to the story. The Greeks and Romans, for instance, were direct inheritors. Their great philosophers and mathematicians like Thales and Pythagoras traveled to Egypt and Mesopotamia, studying under priests and bringing back not just myths, but the geometric and astronomical principles that underpinned those monumental temples. When Roman architects designed the Pantheon, its magnificent oculus was not merely a feat of engineering. That central opening creates a moving spotlight of sun that sweeps across the interior, marking the hours and seasons, a direct descendant of the light shafts in Egyptian pyramids, now reimagined in concrete and marble for a new empire. This thread of influence wove itself even into the heart of medieval Europe. As Christianity spread, church builders often constructed their cathedrals on sites already considered sacred, locations where older, pagan communities had gathered for solstice celebrations. The new cathedrals did not erase these alignments, they repurposed them. Stained glass windows were positioned so that the colored light of the rising sun on a saint's feast day would illuminate the altar in a specific, dramatic way. The layout of many Gothic cathedrals, with their long naves oriented east-west, continued the ancient tradition of aligning sacred space with the path of the sun, now symbolizing the journey from earthly darkness toward the divine light of the resurrection. The old celestial markers were given new Christian meaning, proving that the human desire to anchor faith in the predictable cycles of the cosmos was stronger than any change in doctrine. The Renaissance then reignited this passion with a scholarly fervor. Architects like Brunelleschi studied the ruins of Rome not just for their aesthetic beauty, but for their hidden geometric and proportional secrets, many of which were rooted in cosmic harmony. Buildings were designed according to principles they believed mirrored the music of the spheres, the same mathematical order observed in the movements of the planets. This was not superstition, but a belief that beautiful, harmonious architecture on Earth could reflect the perfect, divine order of the heavens above. The legacy is alive in our own time, though we dress it in the language of science. Modern astronomical observatories are our contemporary temples to the sky. Their locations on remote mountaintops are chosen for atmospheric clarity, yes, but also for an unobstructed, perfect alignment with the stars they seek to study. The very design of a radio telescope dish, or the positioning of space telescopes like Hubble or Webb to avoid light interference, continues that ancient, meticulous practice of seeking a pure, unbroken connection with the cosmos. This unbroken thread, stretching from Stonehenge to the Space Telescope, reveals something fundamental. Our tools have changed from gnomon to geostationary satellite, but the core quest remains astonishingly consistent. We are still that same species that looks up at the night sky and feels a pull to understand our place within it. The ancient monuments were our first bold attempts to answer that call, the foundational textbooks written in landscape and stone. They teach us that observation is the beginning of wisdom, that patience across generations can yield profound truth, and that to build in harmony with the universe is one of humanity's most enduring and beautiful instincts. Their silent alignments are not relics of a forgotten past, but a persistent echo in our present, a reminder that the dialogue between earth and sky is a conversation we are all still a part of. The rediscovery of these celestial blueprints is itself a story of modern science meeting ancient intent. For centuries, the true purpose of sites like Newgrange lay dormant, their secrets buried under turf and time, known only as ancient mounds or curious piles of stone. It was not until the winter solstice of 1967 that a researcher named Michael O'Kelly witnessed the dawn light penetrate the inner chamber for the first time in millennia. That moment of revelation, made possible by meticulous archaeology and astronomical calculation, reopened a dialogue with our ancestors that had been silenced for ages. Each such rediscovery, from the sun dagger at Chaco Canyon to the lunar alignments in Malta, is a gift of understanding, a chance to recover a chapter of the human story we thought was lost forever. Yet with this rediscovery comes a profound and urgent responsibility. The very conditions that allowed these sites to function are now under threat from the world we have built. The most pervasive challenge is light pollution, the orange glow that spills from our cities and towns into the night sky. For ancient cultures, the heavens were a brilliant, detailed tapestry. Today, for a third of humanity, the Milky Way is invisible. This artificial veil doesn't just hinder modern astronomers, it severs our tangible connection to the past. We cannot hope to fully comprehend the awe that inspired Stonehenge if we have never truly seen the starry sky it was built to honor. The darkness they relied upon is becoming a rare commodity. Physical preservation presents another layer of complexity. The surge of global tourism, while a testament to our fascination, brings inevitable wear. The delicate sandstone at Chaco Canyon, etched by wind and water for 1,000 years, is now vulnerable to the subtle but cumulative impact of countless footsteps. Even the moisture from human breath within enclosed tombs can accelerate the decay of ancient stonework. Furthermore, climate change introduces new and unpredictable stresses, from more intense rainfall eroding earthen works to shifting soil stability that threatens the foundations of megaliths. These sites survived for thousands of years through natural cycles, but the rapid changes of the modern era present challenges their builders never could have anticipated. Thankfully, a global effort is underway to meet these challenges. Organizations like UNESCO designate these places as World Heritage Sites, not as a mere title, but as a framework for international cooperation and funding for conservation. More importantly, local and indigenous communities are often at the forefront, serving as guardians of both the physical sites and the living knowledge associated with them. In places like New Mexico, partnerships between park services and Pueblo descendants ensure that preservation respects both scientific value and deep cultural tradition. Technology also lends a hand, with three-dimensional laser scanning creating immutable digital records of every stone and carving, allowing for precise restoration and virtual access that can reduce physical strain. To protect these places is to protect more than just old stones. We safeguard irreplaceable windows into a different human consciousness, a time when the cosmos was not a distant abstraction but a daily, intimate presence. These alignments are a testament to patience, to cooperation across generations, and to a unifying quest for meaning written in the language of light and shadow. They remind us that our ancestors were not primitive but profoundly observant, turning their gaze upward to find order, purpose, and beauty. In preserving their work, we honor that shared human impulse to look at the stars and wonder, ensuring that future generations can still stand in those ancient doorways and witness the same cosmic clockwork that has guided humanity since the very beginning. Even with all we've uncovered, the map is far from complete. Certain sites stand as profound enigmacies, their celestial whispers just beyond the reach of our current understanding. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a staggering complex of carved stone pillars erected over 11,000 years ago, long before the invention of agriculture or permanent settlement. Among its many rings, one enclosure seems to have pillars oriented toward the southern sky. Some researchers propose these massive T-shaped stones align with the rising point of the star Sirius. If confirmed, it would push back the timeline for dedicated astronomical observation by thousands of years, suggesting a hunter-gatherer society possessed a sophisticated, long-term knowledge of the stars. But the evidence is still debated, a puzzle wrapped in the dust of millennia. Similarly, scattered across the deserts of the American Southwest are hundreds of subtle constructions known as calendar circles or sun circles. These are not grand temples but simple arrangements of stones, often just a few carefully placed rocks forming a small ring with key gaps or spokes. To the untrained eye, they are nearly invisible, yet when studied on the ground at specific times, these gaps frame the sunrise or sunset on solstices or equinoxes. Their sheer number and simplicity suggest this knowledge was widespread, a common cultural toolkit, but the full depth of their purpose in daily life and ceremony remains an open question. Our ability to ask these questions is being transformed by tools our ancestors could never have envisioned. Light detection and ranging technology, or LiDAR, is revolutionizing the field. By firing laser pulses from aircraft through dense jungle canopy or over rugged terrain, it creates a precise three-dimensional map of the ground surface, stripping away the vegetation to reveal what lies beneath. In places like the Amazon and the jungles of Central America, LiDAR has unveiled vast, previously unknown networks of roads, plazas, and structures, entire cities lost to time. Each new site is a potential trove of new alignments, a fresh data point that could confirm or reshape our theories about how ancient cultures organized their world in relation to the cosmos. The data from these discoveries is now so vast that researchers are turning to data science and complex statistical modeling. By analyzing patterns across dozens or hundreds of sites, they can search for broader cultural trends, distinguishing between regional styles of celestial observation and potentially universal human practices. Yet, the most elusive mystery may not be in the stone or the star charts, but in the human mind. We can calculate the angle of a solstice sunrise and understand its agricultural necessity. We can appreciate the political power of a staged light show. But what did it truly feel like to be part of that original audience? To stand in the pre-dawn chill at Stonehenge, surrounded by your entire community after a long journey, and watch in silence as the first golden sliver of sun cracked the horizon precisely between those towering lintels. What was the cognitive and emotional impact of that shared sensory proof that the universe was orderly and that your leaders could commune with its rules? This experiential dimension, the awe, the collective reinforcement of belief, is something our instruments cannot directly measure. It requires a different kind of scholarship, one that braids archaeology with psychology, anthropology, and a deep respect for the living traditions of descendant peoples. This is why the field feels so vibrantly alive today. It is not a dusty archive of solved puzzles, but a dynamic conversation between past and present. Every time a LiDAR scan reveals a new temple, or a software model refines an alignment, or an ethnographer records a story that explains a petroglyph, we peel back another layer. These discoveries constantly challenge our assumptions, reminding us that the ancient world was filled with intellects as keen and curious as our own. The quest to understand why they built in concert with the heavens is in many ways a quest to understand a fundamental strand of human consciousness itself. These silent stones across the globe speak a common language of the human mind. At their core, these celestial alignments reveal something fundamental about us, a universal cognitive signature etched not just into monuments, but into the very way we perceive reality. We are, by nature, pattern-seeking creatures. Our ancestors looked at the chaotic dance of lights in the night sky and did not see randomness. They saw a story, a rhythm, a grand design waiting to be decoded. This impulse to find order in the cosmos and then to physically impose that order onto the landscape is one of humanity's earliest and most profound intellectual leaps. It moves beyond the basic instincts of food and shelter into the realm of pure inquiry. Why does the sun return? Why does the moon change shape? What force guides the stars? These are not questions asked by a primitive mind concerned only with survival. They are the questions of a philosopher, a scientist, and a poet, all emerging from the same human consciousness. The construction of a solar calendar in stone is, in essence, a grand hypothesis made permanent. The hypothesis was that the cosmos operated on predictable, cyclical principles. The test was building the structure to mark those cycles, and the triumphant result, the beam of light striking the inner chamber on the predicted day, was the experiment's successful result, validating generations of observation. This seamless blend of empirical science and spiritual awe is what makes these sites so powerful. There was no distinction for them between tracking a star's path and charting a god's journey. The precision of the observation deepened the meaning of the myth, and the power of the myth gave purpose to the relentless observation. They understood that to know the schedule of the heavens was to participate in a sacred dialogue. This challenges a persistent, modern bias that views ancient peoples as somehow less intelligent, merely struggling through a short, brutal existence. The truth revealed by these alignments is the opposite. They demonstrate extraordinary intelligence, but of a different kind. Our intelligence of deep attention, of intergenerational patience, and of holistic understanding. Their genius lay in connecting disparate realms, astronomy with agriculture, geometry with governance, architecture with theology. They were systems thinkers on a cosmic scale, seeing the unity between the earth and the sky long before our specialized sciences separated them. In our current age of constant digital distraction and instant gratification, their legacy offers a quiet but profound correction. They remind us of the value of looking up and of looking long. Their achievements were not the product of a single brilliant mind, but of a cultural commitment to preserving and building upon knowledge across centuries. A master builder at Newgrange would never live to see the full precessional cycle his work might encode, yet he built for a future he would never know, trusting in the chain of knowledge that linked him to his ancestors and his descendants. This long-term perspective, this willingness to invest in a project whose full utility might not be realized for 100 lifetimes, is perhaps their most staggering lesson. It speaks to a sense of time and legacy that feels almost alien to us now. Ultimately, these monuments are not about the past alone. They are mirrors held up to our own potential. They ask us what we are building for the future, what patterns we are seeking in the chaos of our own world, and how we might reconnect with that profound, innate drive to find our place within a meaningful, ordered universe. The stones do not just align with stars, they align us with a deeper part of our own humanity. Perhaps the most urgent lesson is one of long-term vision. These monuments were not built in a single election cycle or even a single lifetime. They were generational projects requiring a society to invest labor and resources for a future its founders would never see. This intergenerational pact, this trust in a chain of knowledge linking ancestors to descendants, stands in stark contrast to our often short-term thinking. When we face challenges like climate change or the stewardship of scientific knowledge, we are confronting problems that unfold on a scale of centuries, not quarterly reports. The ancient builders understood that some truths and some projects require a patience that outlasts any individual, a lesson in legacy we desperately need to recall today. Their work also embodies a holistic way of knowing that our modern world has often fragmented. For them, there was no wall between the astronomer, the engineer, the priest, and the artist. A solstice alignment was a mathematical calculation, a spiritual event, a political statement, and a public spectacle all at once. This fusion of disciplines is something we are only now relearning to value, as the most pressing issues of our time, from public health to artificial intelligence, demand exactly this kind of integrated, systems-level thinking. We cannot solve complex problems with a single, isolated field of expertise any more than they could have built Newgrange with only stonemasons and no sky watchers. Furthermore, their deep, attentive connection to environmental cycles is a quiet rebuke to our disconnection. They read the sky to know when to plant. They structured their years around the flood and the drought. Their survival was literally aligned with natural rhythms. In an age of artificial environments and global supply chains, it is easy to forget our fundamental dependence on these same cycles. Their legacy reminds us that true sustainability is not a new technology, but an ancient practice of observation, respect, and synchronization with the world around us. Ultimately, standing before these stones cultivates a profound sense of humility and wonder. We look at a calendar carved in granite and realize our ancestors, with what we consider primitive tools, achieved a precision that still inspires awe. This shrinks our modern arrogance and expands our curiosity. It reminds us that we are not the first to gaze at the stars and seek meaning, nor will we be the last. We are simply the current chapter in a very long story of cosmic inquiry. This inherited wonder has practical implications. It drives us to protect dark skies from light pollution, so that future generations can also see the Milky Way that guided ancient navigators. It fuels our support for pure scientific inquiry, the modern equivalent of tracking a star's path for a lifetime, not for immediate profit but for the deeper understanding of our universe. And perhaps most personally, it invites us to build our own connections. That might mean simply stepping outside on a clear night to look up, visiting a planetarium, or supporting local efforts to preserve historical sites. It is about recognizing that the dialogue between humanity and the cosmos did not end with the last ancient temple. We are continuing it every time we launch a space telescope, map a genome, or even pause to appreciate a sunset. Their stones are a permanent invitation to remember that we are part of something vast, ordered, and beautiful, and that our greatest projects have always begun with a simple, shared act: looking up. From the desert pyramids to the forest temples, the silent stones continue to speak. They tell a story of humanity's timeless romance with the stars, a narrative written not in ink but in sunlight and shadow. We have traced the how and the why, from the practical calendars that secured a harvest to the sacred rituals that summoned the gods, from the displays of power that cemented a ruler's authority to the profound, patient search for cosmic order. These alignments are not relics of superstition or mysterious coincidence. They are monuments to human ingenuity, to a kind of intelligence that valued deep observation and intergenerational patience. They stand as testaments to our innate, unshakable desire to comprehend the grand design of the universe, to find our small, significant place within its vast and beautiful machinery. These structures are the ultimate bridges. They span the gap between earth and sky, transforming celestial mechanics into terrestrial meaning. They connect the past and the present, allowing us to stand where an ancient astronomer once stood and witness the same cosmic event they engineered their world to celebrate. That continuity is their greatest gift to us. As we look up at the same stars that guided the ancients, their achievements offer a quiet challenge. They inspire us to keep wondering, to keep exploring the mysteries that still surround us, and to build our own meaningful connections to the cosmos, whether through science, art, or simply the act of looking up on a clear night. Their legacy is a reminder that the dialogue between humanity and the heavens never truly ends. It simply finds new forms. If you found this journey through celestial blueprints illuminating, please subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. We would love to hear your thoughts on these ancient alignments. Which site fascinates you the most, or any theories you have about humanity's connection to the stars? Share your reflections in the comments below.